At 8:17 on a cold Tuesday morning in November, a 64-year-old woman named Gloria Price walked into the Bellwether Police Department and confessed to a crime that had never happened. She could not name the store. She could not name the street. She did not know what had been taken, or what she had used to break the glass, or how she had gotten home. 46 minutes later, a police sergeant had supplied every missing detail himself. At 9:03, he slid 3 typed pages across a metal table, put a pen in her hand, and showed her where to sign. At 9:05, the owner of the burglarized store walked into the lobby carrying a security recording. His front window was whole. His inventory was untouched. Nothing had been stolen. Nothing had been broken. No crime had occurred anywhere on Carson Avenue that night. But Gloria Price had not come to confess. She had come to prove who had been writing the confessions in Bellwether for 24 years. The morning began before sunrise, in a small brick house on Juniper Street, where she had lived since 1981. It was a narrow house with a sloping porch and a maple tree. Her husband Isaiah had planted the autumn. Their son was born. By November, the leaves had turned the color of old copper, and they lay across the front walk in wet, shining layers. Gloria had not raked them. She had not been able to look at that tree for very long since March. She rose at 5, though she had hardly slept. She bathed. She pressed a gray wool dress and laid it across the back of a kitchen chair. She made coffee she did not drink. On the kitchen table sat 3 things: a brown accordion folder, a silver locket, and a yellow legal pad with 4 sentences written on it, in the careful hand of an attorney named Rebecca Shaw. Do not invent details. Do not agree unless he supplies them first. Ask to read every page. If you want to leave, say so out loud. Gloria read the 4 lines twice. Then she opened the locket. On one side was Isaiah under a straw hat, squinting into a summer he had not lived to see the end of. On the other side was Marcus at 19, in a community college graduation gown, holding the tassel out from his face like it had personally offended him. Marcus had died in March, at 45. The certificate said heart failure. Gloria had learned that a certificate can only describe the last thing a body does. It cannot describe the 12 years that were taken out of the middle of a man's life. It cannot measure the nights he woke up, certain he had heard keys turning in a corridor. It cannot explain why a boy who used to sing while he repaired lawnmowers came home unable to sit with his back to a door. She put the locket around her neck and buttoned her collar over it. In January of 2001, Marcus Price confessed to robbing Danner's pharmacy with a tire iron and taking $840 from the register. He was 20 years old. He had no record. No fingerprint of his was found inside that pharmacy. The store camera had been broken for 4 months. 2 witnesses gave descriptions that did not match each other, and neither one matched Marcus. He told the police, at first, that he had spent the evening at his cousin's apartment on Delaney Road. He told them that for a long time. 11 hours later, he signed a statement saying he had acted alone. The detective who took that statement was Daniel Mercer. Gloria believed the confession. That was the thing she would carry the rest of her life. She believed it because her son's name was written at the bottom of it in his own handwriting, and because she had raised him to understand that a signature is a promise. She asked him about it through the scratched glass of the county visitation booth. Why would you put your name on a thing you did not do? Marcus's eyes were swollen almost shut. He had not slept in 3 days. Because he kept telling me I could go home when I got it right. Gloria heard evasion. She heard a young man reaching for the nearest door. She told him, with all the love and all the certainty she had, that the truth does not change because a room is cold or a policeman is impatient. She told him that he had to hold on to what was true. Marcus lowered his head and did not answer. For almost a year after that, he stopped putting her name on his visitation list. 12 years he served. In 2013, a man negotiating an unrelated federal case admitted the Danner's robbery. He described the hidden cash drawer under the second register. He described the green delivery jacket left on the floor by the cooler. He described the loose floor tile near the rear exit that rocked under your heel. None of those things had ever been released to the public. The conviction was vacated. The district attorney at the time offered no apology in open court. He said only that the state no longer had confidence in the verdict, which is a careful sentence, built so that it can be read two ways for the rest of a man's life. Marcus walked out of the county courthouse carrying a cardboard box with a windbreaker in it, a Bible, and 400 pages of legal correspondence. Gloria waited at the bottom of the steps. She had rehearsed what she would say, and none of it was any good. She expected him to be angry. She had earned his anger, and she intended to stand there and take it. Instead, he put his forehead against hers, the way he had when he was 6 years old, and said, "Mama, I got tired of needing you to believe me." That sentence stayed in the house with them for 12 more years, long after forgiveness came. It sat down at the table with them on Sundays. It was there when he brought his laundry over. It never went away, and it never stopped being true. He worked at a church-owned repair shop on 9th Street, fixing mowers and small engines. Twice a year he spoke to law students about false confessions, always briefly, always without notes, always declining the honorarium. He did not want to be a cause. He wanted a quiet life, a room with a door that unlocked from the inside, and Sunday dinner at his mother's table. Some weeks he got all three. After the funeral, Gloria cleaned out his apartment slowly, over 5 weeks. She folded his shirts. She gave his tools to the shop. She kept a chipped blue mug he drank tea from. In the bottom drawer of his desk, underneath a stack of old utility bills, she found a banker's box with one word on the lid, printed in black marker. Mercer. Inside were photocopies of police statements, newspaper clippings, public records requests with the county's stamp on them, letters from men and women in state facilities Gloria had never heard of, some of them 10 years old, some answered in Marcus's handwriting on the back. Her son had spent the last decade of his life comparing his confession to other people's, and certain phrases came up again, and again, and again. Overcome by sudden financial pressure, I acted without assistance or encouragement. After being treated fairly and provided adequate rest. In his own handwritten draft from 2001, Marcus had spelled adequate as adequate. The same misspelling appeared in 3 other typed statements, taken from 3 other people in 3 different years. In the margin beside them, in blue ballpoint, Marcus had written, "A man can steal money. He cannot steal another man's spelling by accident." Gloria sat on the floor of her dead son's apartment with that box in her lap for a long time. Then she carried it to her car, and she drove it to the one person Marcus had ever fully trusted with it. Rebecca Shaw was 51, a civil rights attorney, with a 2-room office above a shoe repair on Main. Silver had started at her temples. She had a habit of taking off her glasses when she was about to say something she needed you to actually hear. She had represented Marcus after his release. In a compensation claim, the state fought for 4 years and settled for an amount that would embarrass anyone who read it out loud. For 6 weeks that summer, Gloria and Rebecca went through the box. Some of the cases had ended in plea agreements. Some had been quietly dismissed. 2 of the people were still incarcerated. 1 had died inside. The crimes were different. The names were different. The years were different. The bones were the same. Suspects volunteering facts that the police reports showed they could not possibly have known. Interview recordings that began late, after 4 or 6 or 9 hours of unrecorded conversation. Waiver forms describing the same unlikely hospitality, over and over, year after year. Coffee with 2 sugars, a ham sandwich with no mustard, a 15-minute rest. Marcus believed Mercer fed details to people, Rebecca said one night, glasses off, and then wrote the statements as though those people had offered the details up themselves. Gloria looked at the paper spread across the table. Belief did not save my son. No. So what would prove it? Rebecca did not answer quickly. She was a careful woman, and she took nearly a minute. A clean test, she said finally. A situation where there are no true details to discover, where the crime does not exist, so there is nothing for him to correctly remember. If he fills in the blanks anyway, if he produces an address and a weapon and a dollar amount out of nothing, then the method itself becomes visible. Not one man's word against another. The method. The idea did not arrive like lightning. It came into the room quietly and sat down between the two of them, and neither one of them said anything for a while. They built it to be harmless, and they built it to be legal, and both of those things were harder than they sound. No property would be damaged. No innocent person would be accused. No officer would be asked to falsify anything. The whole point was that no one would ask him to. Gloria would offer one incomplete admission and nothing else. She would never state a fact she did not know. She would never lie under oath. She would leave blank spaces, and she would find out whether a man would fill them. Rebecca laid out the risks across 2 evenings, and she did not soften any of them. Filing a false report is a crime in itself. The county could charge Gloria. Her age and her record would not protect her. The police could hold her for hours, or transport her, or place her in a cell. Mercer might be off duty. He might be on vacation. He might hand it to a patrol officer who would follow procedure and clear the whole thing in 10 minutes, and then they would have nothing. And a demonstration is not a court order. Even if it worked perfectly, it would not automatically free one single person. Gloria listened to all of it. Then we make sure the law is watching, she said. Rebecca took the box to Lena Ortiz, an assistant attorney general who ran the state's Conviction Integrity and Public Trust Unit out of the capital, 4 hours north. Ortiz was not enthusiastic. She said plainly that her office did not authorize theatrical stings, that it did not deputize private citizens, and that if this went badly, it would give every prosecutor in the state a reason to dismiss the entire unit as a group of activists with a grudge. Then she read the files for 11 days. She called Rebecca back on a Thursday. She would not authorize anything. She would not direct Gloria to say a word. What she would do was place 2 state investigators nearby as independent observers, because the allegations in Marcus Price's box were serious enough to justify observation. She confirmed that state law permitted a participant in a conversation to record it. She required a written affidavit from the business owner, and she required, in writing, that Gloria could withdraw at any moment. I want to be clear about one thing, Ortiz told Rebecca. If your client is charged, my office does not represent her. I cannot make that go away. I would not have the authority even if I wanted it. Rebecca relayed that to Gloria word for word. I understand, Gloria said. I don't think you do. Rebecca, my son sat in a room like that alone, at 20 years old, with no lawyer and no recorder, and nobody outside that door who knew where he was. She folded her hands. I will not be alone in there. That is already more than he got. The store was Bell's Home and Hardware, at 614 Carson Avenue, 6 blocks from the police station. Thomas Bell was 72. His children and Gloria's had gone to Fairmount Elementary together. He had sold Isaiah the shovel that planted the maple tree. He signed the affidavit at his own counter with a carpenter's pencil, because that was what was in his apron. You want me to say that nothing happened to my store, he said. That's right. Well, that's the easiest true thing I've ever put my name to. He looked up. Gloria, is this going to hurt you? It might. Thomas nodded slowly and pulled the pencil back toward himself and signed anyway. His front consisted of 3 broad panes of reinforced glass. He pulled continuous camera footage from midnight to 6 and copied it twice, once to a tablet he could carry, once to a drive he handed to a state investigator. At 7:42 that Tuesday morning, in the parking lot behind a laundromat 2 blocks from the station, Rebecca stitched a small recorder into the seam of Gloria's cardigan and pressed the switch. A green pinpoint came on. A second recorder, made to look like a key fob, went into Gloria's handbag, along with her phone, which was already connected in a silent call to Lena Ortiz's line. Both devices showed full batteries. The test transmission came through clean. Two state investigators, Paul Renner and Anita Vasquez, parked an unmarked sedan on 3rd Street, half a block from the station's side entrance. Thomas Bell waited at his store with the tablet, with instructions not to move until Rebecca called him. There were no news cameras. There was no crowd. There was no promise anywhere that the world would care what happened in the next hour. Rebecca held both of Gloria's hands. Say the 4 things. Do not invent details. Do not agree unless he supplies them first. Ask to read every page. If I want to leave, say so out loud. And what is the 5th thing? Gloria almost smiled. There is no 5th thing. The 5th thing is that you are allowed to change your mind in the doorway. Nobody in this world would think less of you. Gloria took her hands back, gently, and got out of the car. At 8:13, she climbed the granite steps of the Bellwether Police Department alone. The lobby smelled like floor wax and old coffee. There was a flag on a stand, a bulletin board of community notices, and a scratched wooden counter with a bell on it that nobody ever used. Behind the counter, a young officer named Evan Cole looked up from a computer. He was 18 months on the job. His uniform still fit, like it had been ironed by somebody who cared. "Good morning, ma'am. How can I help you?" Gloria set both hands flat on the counter so he could see they were steady. "I need to tell somebody that I broke a store window last night." Cole's face changed, but his hands did not move toward anything. "Are you hurt?" "No." "Is anybody else in danger?" "No." "All right." He reached for a pad. "Which store?" "I don't remember." He paused. "Do you know where you were last night?" "At home, mostly." "Mostly." "I came here to confess," Gloria said. "That's what I know." Cole studied her for a moment. He was looking, she understood later, for the things they train you to look for. Confusion, fear, the flat, glassy look of a person in crisis. "May I see some identification?" She gave him her license. He copied her name and her address. Then he picked up the phone and asked for a supervisor. And what he said into that phone was, "An older woman has made an unclear statement regarding possible property damage and may need assistance." That is exactly how procedure is supposed to sound. The first thing that went wrong quietly. The supervisor on the board that morning was Sergeant Amy Hayes, and Sergeant Hayes was 11 minutes away on a traffic collision at the county line. The desk relayed it down the hall, and Sergeant Daniel Mercer, who had come in at 6 to close out a month of reports and had his coat over his arm and his keys already in his hand, heard the word. Burglary. Through an open door. He put the coat back on the hook. He came into the lobby at 8:17, 58 years old, broad through the shoulders, thinning blonde gray hair, a face that seemed to have been built around impatience, and then softened by nothing at all in 27 years. 3 service bars on the sleeve. Gloria knew him the second she saw him. He did not know her. There was no reason he should. He had met her twice in 2001, in hallways, for less than 4 minutes total, and she had been a crying woman in a coat, and there had been a great many of those. "What have we got?" Cole explained it. Mercer looked at the license, then at Gloria. "You broke into a store." "I broke a window," Gloria said. "Same thing, if you went inside." "I don't remember going inside." Mercer gave Cole a small smile, the smile men use when they believe someone else has made a simple matter complicated. "Go run the morning vehicle checks, Cole. I've got this." Cole did not move. "Sergeant, should we request a medical evaluation first?" "For a confession?" "She's uncertain about the facts. All of them. People get uncertain when the consequences show up." Mercer turned. "Ma'am, come with me." "Sergeant, she came in voluntarily." Mercer looked back at him then, and the smile was gone. "And now she is the admitted offender in a commercial burglary. Hand me your cuffs." Gloria heard Rebecca's voice in her head. "Do not provoke. Do not resist. Say out loud what is happening. Am I under arrest? Turn around, please. Am I free to leave? Not after admitting to a felony in my lobby. No. He took his own handcuffs off his belt before Cole could decide anything. The first ring closed around Gloria's left wrist. The metal was cold against the thin skin above her watch. The second closed tighter than it needed to. Sergeant, Cole said, we have not confirmed a complainant, a location, or a crime. Put your concern in a memo. I am securing a suspect. Gloria turned her head toward the young officer. There was anger in his face, held down hard behind 18 months of discipline. Please write down the time, she said to him. Cole looked at the wall clock. His voice came out level. 8:19. The second thing that went wrong at the property window. Handbag, Mercer said. Gloria's stomach dropped. It was the most ordinary sentence in the world. It was standard procedure at every department in America. A person being taken into custody does not carry a bag into an interview room. Inside that bag were the backup recorder and the phone carrying a live open line to an assistant attorney general of the state. Gloria handed it over. A civilian clerk sealed it into a plastic tray and logged it at 8:22. In an unmarked sedan on 3rd Street, Lena Ortiz heard the muffled sound of a bag being set down, then a drawer, then nothing at all. She looked at Renner. We just lost audio. Rebecca leaned forward from the back seat. The cardigan. The cardigan doesn't transmit. It records. If it's still recording, we won't know until she comes out. Ortiz set the phone down. And if he pats down that seam, we won't get anything at all. Rebecca said, I want to go in. On what basis? Her lawyer is standing outside the building. Her lawyer has not been called by her client, in the presence of a witness, on a record, Ortiz said. You walk in there right now and you are an attorney who somehow knew to be at the door of a station her client entered 9 minutes ago. Every single thing that happens after that gets explained by the defense as a setup. She looked at the front of the building. Counselor, I have a 64-year-old woman in handcuffs and no ears in that room. I want to go in more than you do. If I go in now, we come out with nothing, and we never get to do this again. Then when? Ortiz checked her watch. 9 o'clock. Whatever is happening at 9 o'clock, we go. Interview room 2 had a metal table bolted to the floor, 3 chairs, and a camera dome in the ceiling, with a small green indicator light. Mercer walked Gloria down a corridor lined with framed photographs of retired chiefs. She counted the doors. At the third one, she remembered Marcus saying the room had been colder than the hallway. At the fourth, she remembered asking him why he had signed. Mercer sat her down and locked one cuff to a steel ring welded to the tabletop. Is that camera recording? Gloria asked. Everything in this room is handled according to policy, which is not an answer. She noted the time on the wall clock. 8:24. He left her there for 9 minutes. The room was cold. She could hear the fluorescent fixture humming above her. She pressed her thumb against the edge of the locket through her dress, and she thought about a 20-year-old boy in a room like this one, in the middle of the night, with nobody in the world knowing exactly where he was. She did not cry. She had decided in the car that she was not going to do that yet. Mercer came back with a legal pad, 2 forms, and a paper cup of water. Let's make this easy on both of us. He read her the rights fast, flattening the words the way a man reads the warning label on a can of paint. He put a waiver form in front of her. I would like a lawyer, Gloria said. It changed the room. She felt it change. Mercer leaned back in the chair. You walked in here asking to confess. I would like to speak with my attorney before any questioning continues. Under the plan that was supposed to end it, Rebecca had been immovable about it. If Mercer stopped, Gloria would walk out with proof that at least this one boundary in the world still held, and they would go home and find another way. Mercer clicked his pen twice. I'm not questioning you, he said. I'm trying to find out whether there is a broken storefront somewhere in this town that needs to be secured before a child walks past it. That's a public safety issue. You can help me with that much, can't you?" Gloria said nothing. "Was it Bell's Hardware?" She looked at him. He wrote something down. "Carson Avenue. You know it?" "I know the store." "So that's the one." "So I didn't say that. You don't have to play games with me, Gloria. We already took a call this morning about a damaged storefront on Carson. That was the first invention, and it was provable. No such call existed. It would not exist in the dispatch log, in the CAD system, or in any recording, and the state would confirm all three within a week." The pen kept moving. "Front display window, correct?" "I said I broke a window." "At Bell's Hardware." "You said Bell's Hardware." Mercer stopped writing. For the first time, he actually looked at her, not at the shape of a case, but at a person. "Are you trying to be clever with me?" "I am trying to be accurate." He put the pen down, he stood up. He walked to the wall, reached up under the housing of the ceiling camera, and did something with his hand. The small green light went dark. "There," he said, sitting back down. "No performance. Just you and me." Gloria heard that sentence through 2 layers of time. Because it was in the box. It was on page 9 of Marcus's own appeal notes, in the same blue ballpoint, written by a young man trying to explain to a court what had happened to him. Then he turned the camera off and said, "Now we can stop performing." 24 years. The same room. The same hand. The same sentence. She put both feet flat on the floor and kept her face still. His voice changed after the light went out. It got warmer. It got almost kind. And that was the worst part. And she was not prepared for it, even though she had been told. "You came in here because your conscience is bothering you," Mercer said. "That tells me you're not a bad person. I've been doing this a long time. Bad people don't walk in at 8 in the morning. Maybe you needed money. Maybe you saw the register through the glass from the sidewalk. Maybe you had the emergency hammer out of your car. I don't keep an emergency hammer in my car." "A tire iron, then." Gloria's pulse went hard in her throat. "A tire iron." "Was it a tire iron?" he asked. "I don't know. But it could have been. A great many things could have been." He wrote, "The important thing here is cooperation. Judges notice cooperation. Here's what I think happened. You broke the glass around 12:40. You went in through the opening. You took the cash from under the counter. Nobody got hurt, and that matters." "How much cash?" Mercer glanced up at the dark camera. $620. "How do you know that?" "The owner told dispatch." Thomas Bell had told no one anything. Thomas Bell was sitting on a stool behind his own counter at that moment, with a tablet in his lap, waiting for a phone call. Mercer slid the paper cup of water toward her. "You were under financial pressure. Medical bills, most likely, at your age. It came on you sudden. You acted without assistance or encouragement, and you regret it. Those are the facts we need to get down on paper." Without assistance or encouragement. Marcus had circled that phrase 11 times, in 11 different statements, taken from 11 different people across 19 years. Gloria kept her voice even. "What was stolen?" "Cash and a cordless drill." "What kind of drill?" Mercer frowned very slightly, the way a man does when a form asks for something he has to produce. "DeWalt, yellow case." "And I carried it home?" "You put it in the trunk of your Buick." Gloria drove a Buick. He had taken that off her license and registration at the counter. "Where is it now?" she asked. "You panicked. You threw it in the river off the Mill Street Bridge." She looked down at her own wrist, cuffed to the ring in the table. Every blank she had walked in with was full now. A store, a street address, a time, a tool, a dollar amount, a stolen item with a brand name and a color, her own vehicle, and a place where the evidence had conveniently ceased to exist. He had built an entire crime out of the frame of one woman's uncertainty, and it had taken him 22 minutes. "I don't remember any bridge," Gloria said. Mercer sighed, and it was a patient sigh, a fatherly one. Memory protects us from the things we're ashamed of. "But the body remembers. That's why you got up this morning and came down here. Your body already knows." He left again. Through the door, she heard him in the corridor. "Cole, generate an incident number. Bell's Hardware, Carson Avenue, burglary and theft." "There's no call for service at Bell's, Sergeant." The suspect self-reported. "Has anybody confirmed damage? Anybody driven past it? Send Hayes when she clears the collision. She's 20 minutes out. Then write the report and stop obstructing me." Gloria heard the young man's silence. It lasted 4 or 5 seconds. Then she heard him say, "Yes, Sergeant," and she heard his footsteps go the other way down the hall, not toward the vehicle bay, but toward the desk phone in the lobby. That decision, made by an 18-month patrolman with his ears burning, would matter more than almost anything else that happened that day. Mercer came back with a pre-printed confession form. He had already filled in the header. Bell's Home and Hardware, 614 Carson Avenue. He wrote 3 pages while he talked, asking questions that contained their own answers. "You parked behind the laundromat, so the bank camera wouldn't pick up your plate." "I don't know where I parked." "But the laundromat is where a person in your situation would park." "If you say so." "I'm asking you." "Then my answer is that I don't know." He wrote, "Parked behind adjacent laundromat." "You wore gloves." "I don't remember any gloves." He wrote, "Wore dark fabric gloves, later discarded." "The $620, did that go to bills?" "I have never seen $620. He wrote, "Proceeds spent on household expenses." At 8:51, the door opened without a knock. "Sergeant, I called Bell's Hardware." Mercer's head came up fast. "You did what?" "I called the store to determine whether a crime occurred." Cole stayed in the doorway. "Mr. Bell says his building is intact. All 3 panes. He's pulling his cameras now." For a moment, the only sound in interview room 2 was the fluorescent fixture. Mercer recovered in about 2 seconds. "Owners miss damage all the time. She's got the wrong night, that's all. Then we stop until it's verified. We document what she volunteered." Cole looked at the 3 pages on the table. He was young, and he was frightened, and he asked it anyway. "Did she volunteer all of that?" "Get out of my interview, officer." Cole's jaw set. "Her request for counsel is logged at 8:29. Out." Cole turned to Gloria. "Ma'am, do you still want a lawyer?" "Yes," Gloria said. "I do." "Then the interview is over." Mercer stood up between him and the table. "You do not countermand a sergeant in his own room." "I'm not countermanding rank, Sergeant. I'm stating procedure." "Hallway, now." Cole went. But he did not go far, and he did not go quiet. Gloria heard him pick up the desk phone in the corridor and ask the operator for the office of the Attorney General. Mercer sat back down and squared the 3 pages with exaggerated care, the way a man does when he is buying himself a few seconds. 27 years I've done this," he said. "A kid learns 1 paragraph at the academy and thinks he understands the job." He turned the pages toward her. "You and I are going to finish what you came here to do. I asked for my attorney. And she's on her way, I'm sure. Before she gets here, I need you to verify that this is your statement. It's not questioning. It's housekeeping." Gloria began to read. The first sentence said, "I, Gloria May Price, voluntarily state that at approximately 12:40 a.m., I drove my blue 2014 Buick LaCrosse to Bell's Home and Hardware at 614 Carson Avenue because I was overcome by sudden financial pressure." It was clean, it was official, it was almost entirely false. She read every line. Mercer got restless around the second page. This says you gave me coffee with 2 sugars. Standard form. You gave me water. It means refreshments were offered. This says I was provided a 15-minute rest. You sat by yourself while I did paperwork. For 9 minutes. Handcuffed to a table. Close enough. She reached the final paragraph. I have been treated fairly, provided adequate rest, and make this statement without threat, promise, assistance, or encouragement. Except it did not say adequate. It said adequate. Gloria's eyes filled, not from shock, from recognition, the particular grief of finding, at 64 years old, the exact thing your child spent a decade trying to show you, printed in front of you on a government form. 24 years had gone by. Marcus was in the ground, and Daniel Mercer was still carrying the same misspelling through other people's lives, like a man tracking mud across every floor in a house. "Why are you crying?" Mercer asked. There was no cruelty in it. He sounded like a man watching a process complete itself on schedule. "Because I have finally found what my son was trying to show me." Mercer went still. Gloria took the cap off his pen. "Your son?" She signed. Gloria May Price. In the space he had marked with an X. Then, beside her name, in her own hand, she wrote the time. 9:03 a.m. Mercer pulled the page back and looked at it. "Who is your son?" Gloria looked up at the dark camera. "Marcus Price." She watched it arrive on his face in stages. First the name, which meant nothing. Then the pharmacy. Then 2001. Then a crying woman in a coat in a hallway, twice, for 4 minutes, whom he had never in his life had any reason to remember. He gathered the pages against his chest. "This interview is terminated." "I requested that," Gloria said, 34 minutes ago. Mercer opened the door at 9:05. Rebecca Shaw was standing in the corridor. Beside her was Lena Ortiz. Behind them were investigators Renner and Vasquez. Officer Evan Cole stood at the desk phone with the receiver still in his hand. And coming down the long hallway past the photographs of retired chiefs was Thomas Bell, 72 years old, wearing his apron, carrying a tablet and a clear plastic folder. Nobody shouted. There was no need for anybody to shout. Rebecca went in first. "Take the handcuffs off my client." Mercer held the confession flat against his chest. "Your client has admitted to a felony." Thomas Bell stepped up beside him. "At my store? There is evidence of an overnight burglary at your business, sir." "No," Thomas said. "There isn't." He set the tablet on the metal table and pressed play. The screen showed the front of Bell's Home and Hardware under the glow of 2 street lamps. The time code ran, unbroken, from 11:58 p.m. to 6:04 a.m. Cars went by. It rained for 4 minutes at 2:11. A cat crossed the lot at 3:40. Nobody came near the glass. Thomas opened the plastic folder. Inventory count at close. Inventory count at open. No missing cash. No missing drill. I don't even stock that drill. And all 3 of my windows are exactly where I left them. Mercer turned to Gloria. Then she filed a false report. Ortiz spoke for the first time. Did she report Bell's Hardware? She confessed to breaking its window. Did she name the business? Mercer did not answer. Did she give the address? Ortiz said. The time? The dollar amount? The drill? The bridge? Those details were developed during a lawful interview. After she requested counsel, Mercer's eyes went to Cole. Ortiz laid her credentials on the table. Sergeant Mercer, do not remove, alter, or destroy any document or electronic record connected with this interview. A preservation order was served on this department at 8:40 this morning. Mercer glanced at the ceiling camera. The indicator was still dark. Equipment malfunction, he said. Gloria reached into the outer pocket of her cardigan with the hand that was still free and set a small recorder on the table beside his 3 pages. The green pinpoint was still lit. "No," she said, "just you and me." It was not over. That is the part that never fits in a headline. Chief Harold Wainwright arrived 4 minutes later in shirt sleeves, with the expression of a man walking into a disaster that had already finished happening. Mercer started talking before he was through the door. "This was a setup, Chief. She came into my station with a fabricated story and concealed recording equipment. She stated one fact," Ortiz said, "that she had broken a store window. Your sergeant selected the victim, produced the address, invented the stolen property, claimed a dispatch call that does not exist, continued after counsel was requested, manually disabled the room camera, and authored a signed narrative for an event that never occurred." Wainwright picked up the pages. "Daniel, is this your handwriting? That's an interview summary. Did she tell you about the drill?" "She adopted the detail." Gloria spoke quietly, from the chair, still cuffed to the ring. "I told him I had never seen the money. He wrote that I spent it on household expenses. I told him I did not remember any gloves. He wrote that I wore them and discarded them. I asked for my attorney. He called the rest of it housekeeping." Wainwright sat down in the 3rd chair. He did not suspend Mercer that morning. He put him on administrative duty pending review, which is a different thing, and which the union would spend the next 4 months defending. He also did what almost every chief in America would have done in that hallway. He asked whether the state had considered that a citizen had walked into his building and lied to a police officer. And at 2:40 that same afternoon, District Attorney Curtis Lang called Rebecca Shaw's office and told her that his office was reviewing a charge of filing a false report against Gloria Price, and possibly obstruction. Rebecca put it on speaker so Gloria could hear it. Afterward, in the small office above the shoe repair, Gloria sat with her coat still on. "Can he do that?" "He can try. You never reported a crime. You reported yourself, which is not the same statute. And you never named a victim or a location." Rebecca took her glasses off. "But yes, he can put you through it. He can make you spend 4 months and money you don't have. That's the part I told you about in September." Gloria looked at her hands. The skin at both wrists had gone purple-red in a band, and would stay that way for 11 days. "Then let him," she said. "Marcus went through 12 years. I can go through 4 months." Lang held it over her until February. He dropped it 2 days after the state's forensic report went public, which is the way those things usually end. Not with a decision, but with a change in weather. The investigation that followed did not move at the speed of that hallway. Real accountability almost never does. It came in boxes and subpoenas and database exports and long evenings under office lights. And it made a great many people uncomfortable who had done nothing wrong except decline to ask a question. Ortiz built a review team from outside Bellwether County. 2 prosecutors, 2 defense attorneys, a retired appellate judge, 3 investigators, and a forensic linguist from the state university named Dr. Elaine Foster. They pulled every case in which Daniel Mercer had personally conducted or approved a custodial interview across 27 years. There were 183. Dr. Foster was careful with reporters, and she was careful in her report, and she was careful on the stand. "No single repeated phrase proves fabrication," she said. "Police forms share standard language. Officers develop habits. Habit is not fraud. Patterns are different." In 46 files, the recording began only after the suspect had already admitted guilt. In 31, there was no recording at all, due to claimed equipment failure. In 22, the confession contained language identical to a police report written. Before the interview took place, 14 contained. Overcome by sudden financial pressure, including 4 cases in which no money was involved in the alleged crime at all. 9 described coffee with 2 sugars. 7 contained adequate. Inside the review team, they started calling it the Mercer mark. But the numbers were not what broke the case. The numbers only told you where to look. What broke the case were 4 people and a bridge. Denise Holloway was a home health aide who had been convicted of stealing jewelry from an 81-year-old client. Her confession named a velvet pouch in the 3rd drawer of a bedroom dresser. That detail was cited at her plea hearing as knowledge only the thief could possess. 4 years after she got out, the client's granddaughter found the pouch in a jewelry box in a closet, where her grandmother had moved it and forgotten it. Denise had taken the plea in 2015, at 29, after Mercer told her that a trial could keep her away from her daughters for 15 years. She served 4. "He wasn't mean to me," she told the review team. "That's what people don't understand. He was the only person in that whole building who was nice to me. He got me a sandwich. He told me he had a daughter, and then he told me what I did." Samuel Reed was a mechanic accused of setting fire to his employer's garage in 2009. His confession said he used a red gasoline can. The fire marshal's preliminary report described the can as red. Laboratory photographs taken later showed the can was black underneath melted paint. Samuel insisted for 6 hours that he had been home with his wife. The recording that survived was 17 minutes long, and it began mid-sentence, and the first words on it were, "Like you told me, I poured it out of the red can." The phrase, "like you told me," had not made it into the typed transcript. Samuel Reed died in the 6th year of a 14-year sentence, of an illness that went too long without treatment. His widow Carol kept every letter he wrote her in a shoebox with a rubber band around it. And in 3 unrelated cases across 11 years, 3 different people had told Daniel Mercer that they threw the evidence off the Mill Street Bridge. The bridge became the 2nd mark. Then there was Leonard Fields, and the Fields case is the one Gloria never talks about easily, because it is the one where the truth did not make anybody whole. In 2004, a man named Walter Dunn died during a robbery at the convenience store where he worked nights. He was 59. He had a daughter named Arlene. Leonard Fields was arrested 11 days later. His confession described a red emergency button mounted under the counter, a detail that never appeared in any news story. Mercer cited it at trial as proof that only the perpetrator could have known it. Fields got 28 years. The original interview log showed that Mercer had returned from the crime scene briefing 14 minutes before Fields first mentioned that button on tape. The 4 hours before that were not recorded. The review team also found, in a folder that had never been turned over to the defense, a partial fingerprint from the register drawer that excluded Fields, and a witness statement identifying a different man, taken 9 days before Fields was arrested, and never followed up. Leonard Fields walked out of state prison on a windy afternoon in March, after 21 years. His brother was waiting at the fence line holding their mother's porch lamp. She had kept it burning every night for 19 years and had died the year before he came home. He brought the lamp because, he said, some lights ought to get to see the person they burned for. Gloria was there. She watched 2 men in their 50s hold on to each other in a gravel lot, and she thought about a cardboard box on a courthouse step. And she understood again that joy and grief will share one human body far more easily than people are willing to admit. The partial fingerprint was run against the modern database that summer. It matched a man named Del Rourke, who had died in 2019. There would be no trial. There would be no sentence. There would be no afternoon in any courtroom in this world where Arlene Dunn got to look at the person who took her father. She came to see Gloria in September. She was 61 years old, and she sat on the porch on Juniper Street with her purse in her lap, and she did not touch her coffee. "I believed it for 21 years, Arlene said. "I built my whole life on top of believing it. I sat in that courtroom, and I looked at Leonard Fields, and I hated him with everything I had, and I was wrong. And now the man is dead, and there is nobody left for me to be right about." Gloria did not say anything for a while. The maple was going copper again. "You want me to tell you it was worth it?" Arlene said. No, ma'am. I would never say that to you. Then what? I would say that somebody took your father, and then somebody else took the truth about it. And you have been robbed twice, and only one of those two things was ever in my power to say out loud. Gloria set down her cup. I am not going to ask you to be grateful. I would not be. Arlene Dunn cried on that porch for a long time. Then she wiped her face and said, My father's name was Walter. Nobody in any of this ever says his name. Walter Dunn, Gloria said. Arlene came to the hearing in November. She sat 3 rows behind Gloria, and she did not speak to any reporter, and when the archive opened the following spring, Walter Dunn's name was the first one on the wall. The public hearing convened on a Tuesday in November, 1 year after the morning in Interview Room 2, in the County Assembly Chamber, because the courthouse could not seat the crowd. Retired Judge Marion Ellsbury chaired it. Families filled the rows carrying photographs. Some of them had driven from 3 states away. Some of them lived within a mile of the police station and had stopped believing, years ago, that anybody would ever ask them anything. Gloria sat in the front row with Marcus's silver locket at her throat. Officer Evan Cole testified in uniform. He did not dramatize a single thing. Mrs. Price was unable to identify a victim, a location, a time, the stolen property, or a means of entry, he said. Sergeant Mercer supplied each of those elements. When she requested counsel, I wrote down the time. The interview continued. Mercer's attorney had 18 months of preparation and one obvious line of attack. Officer Cole, you had been sworn for 18 months. Sergeant Mercer had 27 years. Isn't it possible you simply misunderstood experienced investigative judgment? Cole took a breath. Experience can explain how a man recognizes evidence, sir. It can't make evidence exist. Then, the state called Raymond Vance. Ray Vance was 66, retired 8 years, and had been Daniel Mercer's partner from 1998 to 2007. He had not wanted to come. He came under subpoena, in a suit that no longer fit him, and he was the one witness in that room who had known the whole time. Ortiz asked him about a case from 1999. A 9-year-old girl named Tyler Rowe had been taken from a grocery store parking lot on a Saturday. Mercer had a suspect in a room within 19 hours. Mercer had gone into that room and he had talked, and he had told that man things, and the man had confessed and told them where she was. They found Tyler Rowe alive in a drainage culvert off County Road 9. She is 43 years old today. She has 2 sons. And was the man who confessed guilty? Ortiz asked. Yes, ma'am, Ray Vance said. There was never any doubt in the world about it. His prints were on her lunchbox before Danny ever walked in the room. Did Sergeant Mercer say anything to you afterward that you remember? Ray Vance looked at his hands for a long moment. He said, The confession is just the paperwork. Vance's voice was steady and terrible. He said, By the time I sit down, I already know. Did you report that? No. In 27 years, did you ever report any concern about how Sergeant Mercer obtained a statement? No, ma'am. Why not? Ray Vance was quiet for about 6 seconds, and the whole chamber waited. Because he was right that one time, he said, and a little girl came home, and after that, it got real easy to figure that he was probably right the rest of the time, too. Daniel Mercer testified in his own defense on the second day against his attorney's advice. This is what he said, and it needs to be set down honestly, because a story where the wrong man has nothing to say is a story that teaches nobody anything. He said he had been trained in an era when interrogation was taught as a contest, and that every technique he ever used had been taught to him in a state-certified classroom by men with commendations. He said suspects lie. He said they minimize and forget, and sit across a table and look you in the eye and describe an evening that never happened, and that this is not a theory, it is Tuesday. He said that in 1999 he sat down across from a man who was never going to tell him anything, and that he did what he had to do to make that man talk, and that a 9-year-old girl was alive at that moment because of it. He said that in 27 years he had put away people who hurt children, and that not one person in that assembly chamber had ever had to sit in a room with those people at 2 in the morning and try to get an address out of them before it was too late. He said he never once put a man in prison he believed to be innocent. And when Judge Ellsbury asked him a single question, "Sergeant, when you sat down with a suspect, how did you determine what you believed?" Daniel Mercer answered, "You know, you do this long enough, you just know." The chamber was very quiet. Then Ortiz stood up and said she had 2 exhibits. The first was a 17-minute recording from 2009, in which a mechanic named Samuel Reed said the words, "Like you told me," into a microphone, and a typed transcript, prepared under Mercer's signature, in which those 4 words did not appear. The second was the last paragraph of a 3-page confession signed at 9:03 a.m. on a Tuesday morning in November, in a case with no victim, no damage, no loss, and no crime, in which the word "adequate" was spelled with an I. Ortiz put both pages side by side on the projector, the 2001 statement of Marcus Price and the 2025 statement of his mother, 24 years apart. The same error in the same place, in the same sentence. "Sergeant Mercer," she said, "in 2001, you told a jury that Marcus Price wrote this word. Did he?" Mercer looked at the screen for a long time. "No," he said. It was the only fully honest sentence he spoke in 2 days, and it ended him. Gloria testified last. She told them about a boy who took apart radios on the kitchen floor because he believed every silent thing had a voice in it somewhere, if you could just find the wire that had come loose. She told them about a phone call in 2001, about a signature she had believed because she had raised him to believe in signatures, about a year of visiting days she was not on the list for. Then Ortiz played 4 cuts from the recorder that had been sewn into a cardigan seam, and Daniel Mercer's voice came out of the speakers and filled the chamber. "Was it Bell's Hardware? You broke the glass around 12:40. $620. A DeWalt, yellow case. You panicked and threw it in the river off the Mill Street Bridge." The invented crime sounded finished. That was the thing that put a chill through that room. Nothing in the man's voice suggested invention. He was not sweating. He was not scheming. He sounded efficient and reasonable and entirely certain. He sounded like authority doing paperwork. When it ended, Gloria unfolded her copy of the confession. "If Mr. Bell had come in that morning and found 1 cracked pane," she said, "this paper puts me in prison. If a drill had gone missing anywhere in this county that week, this paper becomes knowledge that only the guilty could have. If I have no attorney, no recorder, and nobody waiting outside that door, then my confusion becomes his evidence, and there is not one thing in this world I could do about it." She looked up at the panel. "My son went into that room young and frightened and by himself. I went in knowing exactly what was coming, with the state of this Commonwealth listening. And I want to tell you something I did not expect. Even then, even knowing, I could feel that room trying to make his words more real than mine." She folded the paper. "That is the part no transcript will ever record." Judge Ellsbury asked her why she had signed it. "Because for 24 years, Gloria said, people looked at my son's signature and stopped asking who wrote the sentences above it." Outside afterward, a young reporter asked whether she wanted Daniel Mercer to suffer. Gloria took the question seriously, because it was asked seriously. "I want the truth to cost less than the lie," she said. "Right now in this country, it is cheaper to leave a thing alone. Until that changes, this happens again. What ought to happen to that man belongs to the law, and I am content to leave it there." It ran in papers across the state. She turned down every television invitation but one, a public radio program that let her talk for 50 minutes without interrupting her. She did not want Marcus turned into a photograph between 2 commercials. In March, Daniel Mercer entered a plea to official misconduct, tampering with evidence and obstruction. He surrendered his certification permanently. The agreement included a sworn written admission that he had supplied material facts in Gloria Price's statement after she failed to provide them, and had represented those facts as independently corroborated when he knew they were not. He did not admit to every allegation in every old case. He never has. Statutes of limitation had closed the door on most of them years before anyone came looking, and evidence had been destroyed on schedule by people doing exactly what the schedule said. Gloria had known that would happen. Institutions negotiate the truth down to the portion they are certain they can prove, and then they call that portion the whole thing. At sentencing, Mercer turned toward her. "Mrs. Price, I'm sorry for the pain your family experienced." Gloria recognized the shape of that sentence. It apologizes for pain the way a man apologizes for weather. It never once names the person who caused it. The judge asked whether she wished to respond. She stood. "My son's name was Marcus Isaiah Price," she said. "He did not." Experience. 12 lost years. They were taken out of him. He did not misunderstand your interview. You wrote words for him, and then you taught the world to call them his. Mercer looked down at the table. "I am not asking you to carry my anger," Gloria said. "I carried it in here myself, and I will carry it out. But I need the record to carry the truth." The judge sentenced him inside the terms of the agreement, and then did one thing more, which mattered to Gloria more than the sentence did. She ordered the sworn admission attached to every affected case file, permanently, and directed the department and the district attorney to notify every living defendant whose interrogation Daniel Mercer had conducted. 11 convictions were vacated in the first year. 7 people got new hearings. A number of cases were reviewed and left exactly as they were, because independent evidence supported them, and Ortiz was scrupulous about saying so in public. "The goal is not to declare everybody innocent," she said. "The goal is to make sure that guilt was established by evidence and not by manufactured certainty. Sometimes we look, and the evidence is right there." That is a good day, too. Bellwether changed its rules, and other departments copied them. Every custodial interview is recorded from the moment a person enters the room, not from the moment a confession begins. The camera controls were moved outside the interview rooms entirely, and every interruption of a recording requires a written explanation signed by a supervisor. An officer may not introduce a non-public detail of a crime until the subject has described it first. A request for counsel triggers an audible timestamp on the recording and an automatic supervisory review, and any written summary of a statement must distinguish, line by line, between the subject's exact words and the interviewer's paraphrase. Chief Wainwright retired early. Before he went, he stood up in a rented hall and acknowledged that the department's safeguards had not failed by accident, that they had been available the entire time and nobody had reached for them. He apologized to the family of Marcus Price and to every person affected. Gloria attended. She did not stand when her name was read. Afterward, he found her in the emptying hall. "Mrs. Price, I know words are insufficient." "They are," she said. He nodded and accepted it. "But insufficient is not the same as useless," Gloria went on. "Put that apology in every one of those case files, in writing, so that 10 years from now, no family has to prove to some clerk that you ever said it." He did. Evan Cole made detective 2 years after that Tuesday morning. He helped write the state's training module on how a junior officer intervenes with a senior one, which is the single hardest thing in that entire profession and the thing almost nobody teaches. He came to the house on Juniper Street before he accepted the promotion. They sat on the porch under the maple, and the spring leaves were coming in. "I keep going back over it," he said. "I keep thinking about what I should have done more of." "You wrote down the time." That didn't stop him. "You called the store, after he'd already put you in cuffs. You asked me a second time whether I wanted a lawyer," Gloria said, "when the man above you wanted you quiet. Son, Courage is hardly ever the whole rescue. Most days it is one honest fact, set down where the next person can stand on it. You gave us 4. He smiled a little. Marcus would have liked you. Marcus would have told you not to drink the station coffee. Cole laughed, and Gloria found that she did too, and it surprised her, how laughter comes back without asking grief for permission. The city gave over an unused room in the basement of the public library, and it became the Marcus Price Justice Archive. Digitized case files, oral histories, plain language guides for families trying to request records from a county that would rather they didn't. Gloria rejected the first plaque they proposed because it called Marcus the victim of an unfortunate error. The final plaque reads, Marcus Isaiah Price, 1980 to 2025. He kept looking for the loose wire that would let the truth be heard. On opening day, the basement was full. Denise Holloway brought her daughters, who were grown now. Leonard Fields brought the porch lamp. Carol Reed brought the shoebox of Samuel's letters and left 3 of them under glass. Thomas Bell donated the tablet he had carried down that hallway. Rebecca donated a copy of 4 sentences on a yellow legal pad. Do not invent details. Do not agree unless he supplies them first. Ask to read every page. If you want to leave, say so out loud. And Gloria donated the false confession. Visitors stand in front of it longer than she ever expected. There is nothing dramatic to look at. 3 pages, blue ink, checkboxes, initials, and a signature with a time written beside it in a woman's careful hand. There is no photograph of broken glass, because no glass was broken. There is no drill, no missing cash, no tire iron, no Buick behind a laundromat, no evidence going into the water off the Mill Street Bridge. The only real objects in the entire story are a table, a pen, a pair of handcuffs, and one man's confidence that paper would be believed before a person. One afternoon, Gloria came in and found a group of police academy recruits standing at the display with their instructor. He asked them what they noticed. One pointed at the misspelling. One observed that the language in the statement did not sound anything like the woman's recorded speech. A third asked why no officer had simply driven 6 blocks and looked at the window. The instructor saw Gloria near the door and asked if she would say something. She stood in front of them. Most of them were younger than Marcus had been when he went in. A confession feels like the end of a question, she said. That is exactly what makes it dangerous. The minute a person says, I did it, your mind wants to take every fact you have and arrange it around those 3 words. Your job at that moment is to start over. Ask what you would still have if that statement disappeared. Ask which details came out of the evidence and which ones came out of your own mouth. And ask yourself whether the person across from you is telling you a memory or just trying to find the door. A recruit in the back raised his hand. Mrs. Price, do you trust police now? It was an honest question, and she respected it enough not to make the answer easy. Trust is not a gift that citizens owe an institution, she said. It is work the institution does where everybody can watch it. Officer Cole did some of that work. Miss Ortiz did some. Maybe you will do some. I trust the work when I see the work. 18 months after that Tuesday morning, the county court issued a declaration of actual innocence. The 2013 order had only set the conviction aside for lack of confidence in the verdict. It had opened a door and left a shadow standing in it for 12 years. The new order said, in plain language, that Marcus Isaiah Price did not rob Danner's pharmacy. Gloria carried the certified copy to the cemetery on the first warm Sunday in April. It lies beyond a white church at the edge of town, on a hill with maples all through it. Isaiah is beside Marcus. She brushed the winter grass off both stones and sat down in the folding chair Rebecca kept in the trunk for her. She read the order out loud. All of it. The caption, the case number, the findings, the judge's signature. Wind came across the hill. Down by the church, a child called out to another child. When she finished, she slid the paper into a clear sleeve and laid it against her son's stone. "They finally wrote it down right," she said. She sat there a while and listened to the leaves. She thought about Marcus at 6, on the kitchen floor with Isaiah's radio in about 40 pieces, and Isaiah asking him whether he had any idea how to put it back together. "Not yet," Marcus had said. She thought about him at 20 behind the scratched glass, about the box under his desk, about a man's spelling, and she thought about her own name, signed at 9:03 on a metal table while Daniel Mercer watched, certain that the signature belonged to him because he controlled the page. It did not feel like surrender anymore. It had turned out to be a door. Before she left, she put 2 fingers on her son's name. "I believe you," she said. She had told him that many times while he was alive, after his release, after the truth came out, at Sunday dinners with the windows open. But grief does not care about chronology. Some apologies have to travel backward through every single year in which they were needed, and you have to keep sending them. That evening she came home to Juniper Street. The maple outside the kitchen window was green again. She made coffee and poured 1 cup, and opened a letter that had come from a woman 2 counties over. The woman's brother had signed a statement after 16 hours without sleep. She wanted to know how a person goes about getting the interview logs. Gloria set the letter down next to Marcus's blue mug and got out a pen. She had stopped believing that 1 recording could repair a system, or that 1 conviction could balance 12 stolen years. Justice is not a scale that swings back to level. It is closer to what her son used to do on the kitchen floor. Patient work inside a crowded box, tracing 1 wire at a time, testing every connection, refusing to throw out the thing everybody else had already written off as silent. The banker's box sits on the shelf above her desk now, its corners soft from handling. She keeps his notes in it. She no longer thinks of it as a container for sorrow. It turned out to be a set of instructions. When a family calls the archive, the volunteers start with the questions Marcus taught them to ask. When did the official recording begin? What happened before it began? Which facts were already public? Which details appear first in a police report? Who chose the words in the final statement? Those questions do not presume innocence, and they do not presume guilt. They demand something sturdier than presumption. They demand that a conclusion show how it was built. Every officer in Bellwether now carries a small card behind the identification in their badge case. On one side are the interview rules. On the other is a single sentence, picked out of Gloria's testimony by a young patrolman who is a detective now. A signature tells you who touched the paper. It does not tell you who supplied the story. Gloria asked them not to put her name under it. The sentence was never only hers. It belonged to Marcus, and to Denise, and to Samuel, and to Leonard, and to Walter Dunn's daughter, and to every frightened person in this country who has ever mistaken agreement for the nearest available exit. In the end, the department printed no name at all. That suited her. The truth does not get smaller when nobody owns it. At 8:17 on a cold Tuesday morning, Gloria Price carried a crime that did not exist into a police station. Daniel Mercer gave it an address. He gave it a broken window and a tire iron and $620 and a yellow drill and a blue Buick and a bridge over a river. He turned uncertainty into evidence and evidence into a confession because he had done it before, and because for 24 years a signature in this town had spoken louder than the person attached to it. But she brought one thing into that room that he could not supply, could not alter, and could not erase. She brought witnesses to the making of the lie. And once people heard a false confession being built, 1 sentence at a time, in a calm and reasonable voice by a man who was only doing paperwork, they started hearing all the other voices underneath. Marcus's was among them. Not asking to be rescued, not asking for revenge, only asking, at long last, to be believed.